Okay, so let's get dialed in. My name is Anthony DeStasio. This is Reps and Receipts. We are going to do a new segment called Pound for Pound. It's a Q&A, and I'm really looking forward to it. So what it's going to be, it's going to consist of 7 questions that's relatable to what we've been doing and to what's going on outside beyond this camera, and questions that came in from via Spotify, Apple, Instagram, our social media links that we have been putting you guys on and getting the content out to, and we've gotten feedback now. So I think it's reasonable enough to say that it's good that people are listening. It's good that people are gaining value, and it's great that people are really interested in buying into what's going on here. We're still continuing to grow, as you know, and we're going to get right into it. As I said, it's a segment called Pound for Pound and Q&A, and I got some feedback. So let's go in and dial in on it. The first question for Pound Q&A is, Anthony, it's Friday night and I'm exhausted. How do I reset without losing my whole weekend? Now, it's a great question, right? Most people are trying to figure out when Friday comes around, as hey, it's the weekend. They consider it the weekend already. Most people even consider Thursday night already going into Friday the weekend, which is absolutely ridiculous. It's unfair to your employer, honestly. It's unfair to yourself, okay? It's unfair to being truthful to yourself and who you are as a human, and I believe that truly shows the morality of who you are and the discipline that you actually have, because you're more tended to focus towards other things that are less important in your life. So in order to get to that question, I'm going to actually say that, how do you reset without losing your whole weekend? There's really no definitive answer, right? Because every person is going to be different. Okay, everybody's body is different, everybody's mind is different. Everybody moves a different way in life. So what I think is that the best way to reset on the weekends is to find that gap of sleep that you may need. If it's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, then get that sleep. But you are going to have to realize that you're going to have to give up areas in your life that may be critical. Okay. You may have to give up, time with your family. You may have to give up time with your friends. Okay. And this is not always the case, right? We're not trying to steal your life away. As I said, this is not what these shows entailed to do. This is what I'm not trying to do or convince you of. But what I am going to tell you is that if you're serious about doing what you want to do, then you have to find a gap that's good for you and the amount of rest that's good for you. So some guys that I know, they're good 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours of sleep. Some people need more than that. And if that's you, then you better find them other hours of the day to be as productive as you can be. Because as you know, we run 16-hour days, okay? And we do it in 4 blocks. And that's imperative that you guys run that. So I think the final answer to the question of number 1 is, how do you get your most rest? It's at your own discretion on how you feel. If you need to go out and hang out with your friends and that's your rest, then that's fine. If you need to go and hang out with your family, that's fine. If you need to go to a certain place and decompress, if you need to go do some meditation, if you need to go to the gym, whatever it may be to reset, do it. But there's no definitive answer to that question. So thank you for that question that you guys had brought in there. I really appreciate that one. That was a good one, actually, right off the bat for Pound Q&A. But okay, on to the second one is, how do I stop saying I'm busy when nothing is actually moving in my life? That's a great question. Another one. Honestly, all these questions that I have are great questions. So a lot of people, they're going to consistently say, oh, I'm busy. It's like people saying I'm balanced. I have a good balance and this and that. And once again, balance is great, right? But busy balance, they don't go in the mix. They just don't. Okay. People are going to sit there and say, oh, yeah, I'm busy. I'm busy. Well, let me tell you something. There's people and there's owners of businesses and there's people that don't own businesses that understand the value of not saying I'm busy. Okay. When you say, oh, I'm busy, what is that? What does that entail? What are you talking about when you say, "Oh yeah, I'm busy"? I'm busy. This is that. It's I'm busy. I'm busy. I'm busy. Yeah, yeah. We're all busy. Okay, everybody's busy. Okay, the mother going to the grocery store that's got 3 kids or a kid, whatever it may be. The father going to the baseball games and has to do a side job on the weekend. That's busy too. Okay. So the notion and idea of consistently saying I'm busy, I think is a pure weakness. And the idea of saying that to other people is even more of a weakness. Okay. You need to stop telling people you're busy because honestly, everybody's occupied, everybody has things to do, and everybody's busy. Okay. Now, there may be people that really aren't quote unquote busy. They just not may have anything to do. That's the reality of that. But with this notion of saying, I'm busy, you need to gear yourselves away from that. You really do. Because it makes you look incompetent. It makes you look weak. It makes you look like you're essentially uneducated. Um, and that all goes again to who the person may be, right? So, whatever the situation is, I think that you guys should just kind of divert from the word busy and figure out another word or a synonym or whatever it may need to be or another sentence to get rid of busy. Okay. Now, I don't know if that fully answers the question here. Um, but yeah, how do I stop saying I'm busy when nothing is actually moving in my life? Yeah, well, nothing's actually moving in your life because you're not busy. You're not creating qualified opportunities and putting value in your life that's quote unquote making you busy. Okay. So let's jump to question 3 here. It says, Anthony, what do I say when someone leaves me on read, and I don't want to look desperate? Well, the phone works both ways, right? So I think it's clear and really disrespectful at the end of the day when you kind of leave somebody on red. And here's why. I deal in the construction sector, in the energy sector, in the real estate industry, primarily. I've dealt in a lot of industries, a lot of ones that I haven't mentioned. And a lot of them guys in that industry, they answer the phone. They answer the phone. I think it's imperative that you answer the phone and that you get back to people. Okay. Now, there are a lot of people that just are going to leave you on red, and that's fine. That's fine. Whatever. Let them leave you on red. Don't think twice about it because it's essentially like shit or get off the pot, right? That's how it's going to be. You can't just sit there and cater to people and wait for a response because if you don't get a response, what are you going to do? You're going to have to find the answer to whatever that question is or whatever that thought was or whatever that context of that, message was about. You're going to have to get some feedback. But if someone's going to leave you on read, I think it's just outright disrespectful because I know guys who run billion-dollar companies that respond in a matter of minutes. And it's not because I have access, to these guys, 24/7, 365 days a year. That's not the case because I've sat with them and they've responded to people that aren't necessarily the higher chain of command, but respond because they know that it's important to respond to that person. Now, yes, there may be levels to it, especially in certain corporate structures where, the janitor, he may not be texting the boss, but there are instances where there's a lot of companies out there, guys, where the janitor may text the boss or the guy power washing, the trucks or the skidsters, or, the broker is, messaging the owner or whatever it may be, right? Just figure out that if they don't respond, leave it as it is. It's not your loss. It's not your loss at all. It's outright just disrespectful. There's enough time in the day to respond to people, at least within 48 hours. So that's my answer to that question. So it says, number 4 here. How do I get people to take me seriously when I over explain myself? How do I get people to take me seriously when I over explain everything? Well, I know a guy that does this. And he's a really great guy, right? But sometimes it's okay to over explain things, because in the normal conversation, the day-to-day conversation with people, um you may oversay something that may be valuable to that person, but at the same time, you got to read on social cues. Okay, it's really important on your communication skills to understand social cues. I think that's actually the most important part in business. If you were to say to me, hey, what's the most imperative part of communication in regards to over explaining things? I don't think it's never a bad time to over explain things. I don't think that's even a bad question at all. And the person who asked that, to your response, is you just pick up on social cues. Okay, if the person wants to hear more, give them more. Okay, but give them valuable information. Give them something they can go off of, something that's knowledgeable, something that's relatable. Don't just spew off and if stuff that people aren't going to want to hear. And then pick up on the guys that don't have time to talk. Don't over explain to them, because there are a lot of people back that have things to do. They have things to do and they got to get stuff done, and they may have goals set for the day, so you're really not doing them any justice. So just pick up on them social cues, and maybe go and read books on social cues. Maybe get out and talk to more people to understand social cues. And I really learned this when I was younger. I really learned social cues fast. Um, I started out really young, in the car wash industry. I was about maybe 11, 12 years old. I started my first job. And the most important thing when I was in that job was me dealing with adults. And I'm going to give it a shout out to my younger brother here. Um, this kid was a hammer. I mean, he was like 10, 11 years old, and he was ringing people up. You ever see them videos? You ever see them videos online where you got the little Chinese kid in the restaurant, running the register, and he's taking the receipts and he's on the phone? You know, that kid, he's learning a skill that a lot of people don't have. Okay. And I think it's imperative that you learn that young, but then it's imperative that you also learn it as you kind of grow older, and just pick up on social cues. Pick up on if the person is busy, pick up on the atmosphere, where you're at, if you're outside, if it's too cold, if it's too hot, if you're in a pool, if you're working out, whatever it may be, just figure out the presence of where you're at, and then go off of that, atmosphere and that social cue. Okay? So, question for that, another great one, another answer for you. Here's number 5. What do I do when my anxiety spikes and I can feel myself spiraling and wasting the day. What do I do when my anxiety spikes and I can feel myself spiraling and wasting the day? Well, everybody's got anxiety. Let me clear that up. Okay? Pound for pound, everybody's got some sort of anxiety. Everybody's got something going on. Um, and I think the biggest avoidance of anxiety is to stay productive and to have clear goals for the day. It's imperative to write these down. It's a really important thing to write down your goals for the day. Now they have so many apps on the iPhone, on Android, whatever it may be, to just complete your goals for the day. I think that will reduce a lot of people's anxiety and staying, again, occupied. Stay occupied, stay moving. Okay. When you stay moving productively, you reduce that spiraling. Okay. Especially when it's laid out in a form, in a listed format. You have a format of, hey, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things I need to execute on. And this is what I'm going to do, because it's controlled output. That's what it is. You deal with spiraling anxiety through controlled output. All right. So don't worry about the anxiety because everybody has it, but write down your goals, get them in your iPhone, and control them. Now, yeah, the situations, they may be situations that are high anxiety and high level stressful situations, but that's just the reality of the world that we live in, and you're going to have to figure that out one way or another. Okay, we're not out here to not deal in spaces that aren't stressful and that don't have anxiety, because if you continue to shy away from it, you're just going to continue to build that anxiety. So it's no different than Will Smith's quote when he talks about going up in the plane. And I don't think it was a quote, I think it was an actual story when he was going up in the plane. And he talks about how he had so much anxiety going up in the plane. And then as soon as he jumped out, it was the most blissful experience. And I think that's what happened when you compound over time. So for that question, build a list of 5 critical tasks and get them tasks done, whether it's stressful or not stressful. Just hammer away at them tasks in front of you. Okay. And if the anxiety's there, it's there. You're going to have to work around it. But I will tell you that when you stay productive, it's going to reduce the anxiety level. All right. So let's jump to the next question here. Anthony, my phone kills my focus. What's one rule I can follow so I stop drifting every day? That's a really good question. I think people don't understand and actually take into account that analytical screen time that Apple gives you, right? They give you an amount of time of how much you're on your phone. But pound for pound, put the phone down. Okay? Put the phone down and get the results that you need. Okay? You're not a kid. All right? This isn't you're not a kid. This isn't a game. Yeah, it's life. Yeah, do we get caught doom scrolling? Absolutely. But with doom scrolling equals time and time equals money. Okay? It's as simple as that. Just put the phone down. Okay? And if you're going to be on the phone, limit it. Start a timer on your watch, your Apple Watch, or even on your phone. Hey, 15 minutes, I'm going to go on socials. I'm going to check out what's going on. And once that 15 minutes is up, exit out of it. Close the app out. But honestly, that question, you need to grow up. You need to grow up, and you need to quit acting like a fucking kid, because that's what children do. If you need to figure out, how do I put my phone down? No, you need to figure out how to grow the fuck up. So that's the answer to that question. Um, and whoever that is, yeah, your focus is gonna drift. You know, everything's gonna drift every day, and you lose day after day. It's just gonna get worse and worse. So put the phone down and grow up. So number 7, instead of asking clients, "How are you?" What should I start? What should I say to start real conversations and close more? Yeah, this is an interesting question because I came across a woman on Instagram, and I don't mean to pick out this woman in general because it's been a multitude of men and women and people who are on social media, and they tell people, oh, don't ask people, how they are. Ask them, ask them what's the next most interesting thing going on in your life. And I had somebody come up to me at a networking event. I didn't know who they were, and they said, "Hey, what's interesting going on in your life?" And although that's a great question, right? I thought, who are you? Who are you? Like, that's a great question, and I'll get to it. But at the end of the day, them questions that them people tell you, that they say, "Oh, don't ask the person how you're doing. Don't ask it. Get right to the point. This and that." No, no, fuck that noise. Okay, people need human interaction, and people usually generally like to be asked, "Hey, how you doing? How's everything going?" And it's a good way to start the conversation. It picks up on the social cue that I talked about earlier. Because if they just say, "Everything's good," okay, that's great. What else is interesting? Anything new going on? And they may say, "Nothing's new, nothing's going on." And then back to a social cue. Okay, nothing's new, nothing's going on. Nothing expressed your interest at this moment. That's fine. You seem occupied. I'm going to let it go. But I think the common denominator of this is you need to keep real human interaction. Okay? People just, they go off and they just think that they can just go out and ask these fucking outlandish questions. They're outlandish. What's the most thing that inspires you in life? And what's new and exciting in your life? Yeah. Okay, maybe if you know the guy for, a couple months, or if you even a couple weeks, I think that's a reasonable question. But a thing that to say it right off the bat, or to take it right out of, the pocket and throw it right at somebody that you don't know. Honestly, I think it's weird. I think it's a weird way. I think it's a weird way to do business, if I'm asking you, because when that guy asked me, what's the most interesting thing going on in my life at that moment, I was like, dude, I don't know. Your name is? So you got to tell these people, first and foremost, find out who they are before you start asking questions like that. Okay. So, yeah, nonetheless, I'm going to leave that at that. Find out who the people are, keep the human interaction, and as you get to know the person, build up them questions. Hey, what's interesting going on in your life? What's new? What's changing? How's the family? How are you? How's your health? Did you see, this is going on? Did you see that's going on? Keep trending events, things that are happening. Stay up on the news and what's happening out in the real world. And I think you'll have genuine conversations with people, and then you can finally lead into them conversations. But I highly advise you not to go immediately into a conversation asking someone, "So what's the most interesting thing going on in your life?" I personally, from my level of experience and dealing with people from all levels of business, all types of companies, all the way down from plumbing companies to HVAC to roofing to union presidents, to people who work in DC, people who are in law enforcement, people who are paramedics, firemen, whatever it may be. Just keep the conversation genuine. And once you build up and get to know that person, ask that question. So, anyways, guys, that's what we have for today. Pound for pound, pound for pound. I took it a little easy on this first Q&A, and I hope you guys liked it. So thank you so much again for dialing in on the Pound for Pound. I will see you next time. Go execute as always. Leave nothing behind. I'll talk to you guys then. Later.